Shalom, this is Yair Davidiy speaking to you from the land of Israel. I'm now about to speak to you concerning an issue that is very vitally important to all of us. It's important to the Jewish people. It's important to the American people. It's important to the British people. It's important to the peoples in Western Europe. It's important to good people, people who believe in the Bible, people who believe in God throughout the earth. The fact is that we are in confrontation. There's a confrontation going on in the world. A battle, a combat between vital forces that has been going on for centuries and now is reaching its culmination. It is reaching its final stages. Recently, that is in historical terms, the Second World War was not that long ago. The Second World War, we had the Axis on one side. The Axis were Germany, Italy, Japan. They were the Axis powers. They were against the Allied powers. The Axis powers were separate entities, three separate entities that had joined themselves together, and they had something in common. Had several things in common, an outlook on life in common, and also an attitude in common. Their attitude was that they should be able to take what they needed from other peoples who were more vulnerable than them, who were not the same as them, and that they should be able to take and use what belonged to others with impunity. The Germans at that time thought that they should be able to take a living space from the Eastern nations and also political hegemony from the Western nations, and that they should be enabled to take everything that these peoples had, all of the vital living natural resources and the space to live in, and life itself from these nations for their own sake, and that also that they should be allowed to eliminate the Jewish people because they didn't like Jews. So too the Italians were similar. The Italians had a similar attitude, but they were directed their wants, their lust, one could say, to take from others towards weaker nations, towards people, Albanians, Greeks, peoples in North Africa, in Ethiopia. But basically their attitude was the same. So to the Japanese consider themselves a super race, the same as the Germans, and they, in their eyes, they should be allowed to take from the Asian peoples whatever they needed for their own aggrandizement, for their own development, for their own purposes, for their own pleasures, and they should be able to take it from all peoples within their reach. Asian peoples in Asia, and also white peoples in Australia, and that they should be enabled to do this without American interference. And since America, being what it would, could not be trusted, could not be relied on not to interfere, America too was listed for elimination, and they were defeated. The Axis were defeated by the Allies. The Allies consisted basically towards the end of the English-speaking peoples, along with the Soviet Empire of the Russian communists. After the Axis were defeated, came a conflict or a confrontation, a continued confrontation with the same forces, but in a different alignment. On one side, we still had the English-speaking peoples who headed the free world. On the other side, we had the Russians and the Chinese communists. And the Russian and the Chinese communists took the attitude that they should be enabled to take from the West, or they should be able to take from others what they needed, and that they should also be enabled to live their lives under the system that of everything goes to the community, and the community can take whatever it wanted and control the lives of everyone within it, according to how functionaries of the party decide, and that this outlook on life could and would be imposed upon all the world, and it should be used as not only as a means of functioning, but also as a means of propagating and spreading influence against Western nations, to bring, and this was the attitude of the Chinese and the Russian communists. This is finished, but the Russians are no longer communists, but they are still in confrontation. They still have a confrontational inclinations based on a similar orientation against the West. And the Russia and the Chinese also have the same attitude, but they have adapted it somewhat to a national position that ultimately all of the world should be the property of the Han Chinese, and the Han Chinese should extend their system to all of the world and use the rest of the world to enhance itself. And so this is what we are up against. This is the confrontation that is continuing. And in addition to this, we also have Islam. We have radical Islam, which has been going on for centuries, but now in its new modern variation, its new modern permutation, it is now taking an attitude as if to say, smelling victory, smelling weakness, that they should be able to demand from the West the property, the lives, the women and the children of Western peoples and of all other peoples who get in their way, and that they incidentally trade with the organs of their captives. They trade with the women folk and the children of their captives. They are not good people, and they exterminate whoever stands in their path. And they also want to eliminate the Jews. And for different sections of the Arab Muslim radicals, the extermination of the Jewish people is in a different level of priority. For some of them, it is the most important thing to do. For others, it is somewhere down the scale that they will incidentally do along with the other tasks that they have set for themselves. So this is the international scene, and this is going on, and it is causing problems. We are already seeing millions of refugees due to Islam radicalism and other factors entering Europe, overrunning Europe, influencing Europe and the democratic constitution of Europe, which may not necessarily be a bad thing in itself, but it is happening. It is a change that is taking place, and it is a change that we will have to cope with at some stage or other, and it is a threat to the state of Israel. In addition to that, in the USA and also in Britain and elsewhere, we have in the cities, we have foreign elements who are taking over and also want to take from the English-speaking groups, the white peoples, as if to say, of those regions, their property and their lives and their sexual license for themselves. And this is a threat. This is a threat to English-speaking nations. This is a threat to our survival. It's also a threat to the Jewish people, even though many Jews are not aware of it. This is the reality. And in addition to this, we have another factor, that within English-speaking peoples themselves are Edomites. What happened? In ancient times we had Edom and we had Israel. The word Edom is another name for Esau. Esau or Esau is a twin brother of Jacob. Jacob became Esau. Esau became Edom. They were twin brothers, but they were different. Jacob received the blessing, Esau did not. But Esau was blessed that he should live by a sword, and he should constantly struggle against Jacob and try to overtake him. And that when Jacob would be weakened, he would be unable to do so. That was the blessing given unto him. And after the 10 tribes, there were 12 tribes of Israel. These 12 tribes divided into 2 different sections. 10 of them taken into exile by Assyrians aided and abetted by the Edomite allies who were part of the Assyrian Empire, in addition to having enclaves to the southeast, the traditional area of Kingdom of Edom. In addition to that area Also Tyre, the Phoenician city of Tyre, was largely Edomite in its population, and there were different enclaves or small groupings throughout the Middle East, also of Edomites, and within the heartland of both Assyria and Babylon there were also elements from Edom, and these elements from Edom assisted, as we see, as is mentioned in the book of Amos in chapter 1, assisted the Assyrians in taking the Israelites into exile. Some of the Israelites were taken overseas directly by Edomite directed Phoenicians and Philistines. They were taken by sea to the British Isles, to Spain, to what is now France, to Scandinavia, Ireland, and so on. Others were taken overland to the regions of Armenia and western Iran, and so on, and from there they moved to the north. They became part of the Scythians and the Cimmerians, and they moved northwards into southern Russia, and from there they moved to the west. In the course of centuries, after dividing and splitting up into different nations, they all converged on the same regions, and they gave rise to the Western peoples in those areas. And the Bible predicted that that is where the lost 10 tribes are, and archaeology and mythology and linguistics and numerous other fields also point to the lost 10 tribes being in that area. And together them were Edomites who had travelled with them and had intermixed with them, and they are still amongst us. The Edomites have different characteristics. The Edomites, there are different types of Edomites. Some of them are thoroughly bad, some of them are reasonable and are quite acceptable, one could say, fellow citizens. They have their inclinations of Edomites are often homosexuals. They're often violently or extremely anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish, and they tend to disturb the balance and the inclinations of the Israelite section of the English-speaking peoples. We should be aware of this, and we should know this, and we should realize this, because English-speaking peoples need to be made aware of their ancestry, of who they are. They need to be aware that the Jewish people of the state of Israel and the Jews elsewhere are their brothers, and that there needs to be a combination or reunification, or at least a drawing together of hearts and minds between Judah and the lost 10 tribes, because we need to unite to meet the confrontational forces from outside and from inside that we are faced with. May the Lord God of Israel bless you. Thank you.